Good morning. It looks like a morning, but it's actually afternoon. So, welcome to pod, as Nyakudian suggested. And I'm your host, Duranira. Today we have a special guest with us, Madam Margaret Okumbe, a distinguished lecturer at the Technical University of Kenya. And welcome to our show. So, how are you today?
I'm fine.
I actually have a very funny question to ask. If you were male, what would you change about how you tackled life, basically?
I don't even know. It's not very easy to imagine what being male looks like, but I'm thoroughly feminist.
Yes.
So I wouldn't really know how. I can't imagine how male would feel like. But I find male work a bit boring because they like to sit idle. So
Oh, that's a really big take on men being idle, but yeah, I mean it's opinion. So, and what do you think are the gender roles that you need abolished, that you'd have like scrapped off completely?
meaning that with these gender specific roles.
Yes.
So if there are some that would be scrapped so that everyone does something, I think that would bring confusion. I think so too, because men are inclined to behave in a certain way. They
Yeah.
think in a certain way. Ladies do the same. So when you abolish gender roles,
Yeah.
it will bring confusion. Because naturally, the way God created people, there is the leader and the led.
Yes.
Sometimes the reverse is true.
Yes.
But reversing roles to me will bring confusion.
Fair. That's a fair take to the same, because I think people would very fast pounce on that question because a lot of feminists have very controversial views on the same. So I really respect your take on that. So on to the major questions of this interview. What subjects do you currently teach, and what do you find most exciting about them?
I teach visual communication. It's industry-based learning, the individual students' projects.
Yeah.
Design theory is the core subject, basically.
And which one do you enjoy the most?
I enjoy all of this. I have this habit of putting my heart into anything I do.
Fully.
Even if you ask me to sweep, I'll do the same. I don't know which one I enjoy most, really. I find the theory a bit boring.
Yes.
So I introduce a lot of practicals in the design theory. For visual communication, I love it because there's a lot of creativity
Yeah.
that I prompt students to develop. So probably that would be the most interesting one of the two.
That's actually an interesting take. And how do you engage and inspire your students in class?
Just like to make them feel that they can.
Yeah.
So very poor performance, but the issue was psychological.
Okay.
So one of the leaders here asked us to just consider receiving him because he had got an A in the O levels.
Yeah.
So we took him back and he's doing very, very well in the industry. So I don't give up on anybody. And for me, marks is not the determinant of your capability.
True.
It could just be a mindset at that particular time or something you're going through in your life. So I like to encourage everybody to do their best.
I think that's a big plus to being a lecturer, because being able to identify a student's problems outside class, outside school, it's a very big plus, especially having that students out here from different backgrounds, from different places. They are tackling different challenges through their lives, and having that capability of understanding that they need something else outside the academic knowledge that you're instilling them is very, very big and a huge plus, and kudos to you. Now, on to your research. Can you briefly describe your PhD research in simple terms?
My research is on the effectiveness of advertising on social media, and I would like to look at how these advertisements have been done, if there is any kind of empathy in them.
Yeah.
And I like the way the Gen Z recently were really trying to get empathy out of the president.
Yes.
It took a while for him to even realize that's what people are looking for.
Yeah.
So that is what I realized was important, because on social media, there is everybody's talking. When people advertise, they imagine that the advertisements will touch them, but getting to the core of that person,
Yeah.
to make them feel that the brand cares for them, the advertiser is concerned about their well-being, has not been commonly done.
Actually, touching on the Gen Z matter, I think I'll try not to hop onto that, stray out of the topic that we have here, because that is a very big matter at the moment. But I think that your research is actually moving by itself, because advertisements out here are just done awfully just to sell the product without having the one making the advertisement put themselves in the buyer's shoes or the customer's shoes. So I think it's a nice topic to discuss, or rather research on. And was there any personal motivation to this research topic?
Actually, there was. I live with an adult son.
Yeah.
And during the COVID-19 pandemic, I noticed that he kept going to the gate.
Yeah.
And to get food.
Yes.
And I got curious because I'd never done online shopping. So I got curious, how does this happen? And I'm like, is the food in the house so bad? He has to keep eating from outside. So he introduced me to online shopping. I learned about advertising online. Actually, my previous topic was on e-commerce.
Yeah.
But I had to move away because of the diversity. It's a kind of classified advertising.
Yes.
So it wasn't going to focus on what I wanted.
Yes.
And eventually, I will look at the advertisements for indigenous food, ugali, omena,
Yeah.
managu. That is what I'm going to look at. So I was wondering, don't I cook well in this house? Honestly, I really try.
Yeah.
And I've also taught him how to cook, so
Yeah.
he has no excuse. But I learned a few things.
Definitely. And can you explain what role does cultural sensitivity play in the success of your social media advertising campaigns?
Culture is a very broad term. A lot
Yeah.
of times when people talk about culture,
Yeah.
they look at the traditions, which are no longer there. Like, basically, I was brought up country,
Yes.
and you'd say I was involved in the local culture, yes and no. Yes, because I was part of the community. No, because I was going through schooling that had a lot of European culture. So
Yeah.
basically, I had that conflict even in my very basic family. Back to my study, culture is very important. And if I define it as the way we do things or the way things are done
Yeah.
here, there are so many cultures. So there are cultures of young people, there are communities within communities. You find that online there are communities, groups of people who influence each other. So that is a group of people that have formed their culture.
Yeah.
And as we are now, whatever group you belong to, the estate where you live, wherever, there is a culture. Even when you board transport, there is a culture of travel. So when coming back to my culture, to my study, the culture is about what these young people, my studies on young people, what is influencing them? What culture are they borrowing, especially in this day and age when we have the internet and we are operating under the global village?
Yeah.
So what is exactly influencing them? That can be incorporated into the advertisements. That is positive, not necessarily negative, positive. So we don't have to stick to our old culture if it doesn't add value to our lives.
Yes, exactly.
So my interest is to find out what culture, is it positive, is it negative? So there is this Americanization that is influencing
Yeah.
how young people eat. Like if you come to like TUK, you find that fries sell more interesting.
Exactly, just like you mentioned about ugali and omena.
Yeah.
It's not even on those fast food apps. You find that it's basically fried chicken, fries, or burgers that are sold on those delivery shops or fast foods. So you find that you'll be missing a lot from the cultures that have been here before, but the Western cultures have already grasped a hold of the customers here. Just as you've said, the culture there has influenced the customers here.
There's the issue of I was born after independence.
Yeah.
And I remember us really trying. When I went to Form 1 is when we were discovering ourselves. And our contemporaries used to follow the European culture in the name of modernization.
Yeah.
For us, after independence, even the literature books we were reading, our behavior, I had a lot of Western people teaching me across the board. I was in a national school. But inside, we knew we are Africans, and it was the time South Africa was fighting for its independence, and would watch a lot of plays about them, how they are suffering.
Sarafina.
So we knew we really, all those, they would come to our school to act for us.
Yeah.
Some of the refugees would come to teach us and teach us about Pan-Africanism.
Yeah.
What should we be like? So we grew up knowing you don't need to bleach your face to look white. You're as good as you are.
Yeah.
You don't need to, like, people have gone back to the Western cultures. You find people painting their nails, painting their lips, all sorts of things. But in our days, we really wanted to go back to our roots and be ourselves. Like, one of the set books was Song of Ochol and Song of Love. And he was critiquing that the wife had adopted the Western culture.
Yeah.
So we knew Western is good in some aspect. Western is bad in some aspects. So we choose what is good for us.
It's all about the handpicking of what basically gets you a better lifestyle, but also maintains your cultural background and the person that you are, in that you don't lose yourself, right?
Yeah, it's your identity. You really have to redefine yourself within the many cultures.
And how do you see practicality, your research in that? How do you apply it to the real life itself?
The first application would be information. While I'm analyzing the studies, I would want to know exactly why people choose what they choose.
Yeah.
And it's touching on health communication, actually. So there'll be a lot of advocacy to assist with those who are carrying out advocacy in terms of healthy eating. It's coming up, but on a very slow rate, because I see a lot of fast food restaurants also opening. So there's very stiff competition.
Yes.
So there's that aspect of advocacy for the health ministry. The second thing is media literacy for those that are consuming advertisements on social media.
Yeah.
To understand, how do I get to this? It is through those that develop those advertisements. How literate are they? How much do they know about what they do? Do they just copy what another artist did? And once they learn what they need to do, then advocacy will be possible.
Yeah.
Media literacy will be possible in terms of understanding. They will educate the consumers through advocacy.
Social media is huge.
Yes.
It's enormous.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we have, it's like the various platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. How do you go about your research? So how do you investigate and sample and test? Like, could you talk a little bit through like your method?
I did a pre-testing. First of all, I had to establish the most popular advertising platform. It is Instagram, but the best place to place the banner advertisements that I'll be looking at is Facebook. It's leading, but a lot of young people would prefer videos.
Yeah.
But I'm not going so much into the preference, because I also know that a lot of young people still use Facebook.
Yeah.
Maybe not the topmost, but they still use it. So for banner advertisements, for advertisements, I've selected banner, but videos are also incorporated here and there, so I'll not neglect that. The methods I'll use is collecting advertisements and the conversations that go around them.
You look at sort of the online conversation.
Yes. I'll not ignore that, because one wrong word, it takes a lot of energy. Bad reputation will take a lot of energy from a wrong comment for buyers to believe that brand is okay. So that is one of the challenges that the advertisers face. They put their advertisements, yes. But whatever is said about them, like reviews, they are so believable that it takes a lot of energy and convincing to be able to build that image back.
And just like you've mentioned about the conversation that is there, different social media platforms have different audiences and different restrictions. You have Twitter, which can be very sensitive to what you're saying. Let's say in the comments, you drop a ratio comment or a ratio joke. Basically, your comment will be removed. In Instagram, you can say whatever you like in the comments, and then in Twitter, you can say the most outrageous things, and they will still remain. Twitter is like where people go and get crazy with what they're saying. They can share controversial opinions. So, as you said, the conversation that is being had in each platform really matters a lot. So I think that is a great observation that you had before going into the research itself.
Yeah, if I may just continue, there's the analysis of the advertisement and the conversations.
Yes.
There's the interviewing of the youth, and I've considered 2 university students because cultures develop from university.
Yes.
And lifestyles, because of studies, people are inclined to behave in specific ways,
Yes.
change their eating habits, etc. So I'm looking at the university students in the public and private university.
Yeah.
And then I will also interview the creators of advertisements. They may or may not be designers.
Having mentioned different universities, I'd like to pull in a slight off the map question. What was the difference between Daystar and Tuk, having been in the 2 premises, institutions?
Students don't have much money.
Yeah.
They're usually sponsored by the government, and I was one of those students who was sponsored by the government fully, not partially, the way some of you are going through it.
Yeah.
They are limited in their finances and their choices, but they have a bit more money.
Yeah.
Even if they are sponsored, they still have some money to spare.
Yeah.
A lot of them come from rich families. Actually, discipline is a challenge there more than here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they are listened to more than here, but that's just on the side. The main thing is that they are more endowed with money and money to buy what they want to eat.
Yeah.
Their restaurants are quite, a lecturer can just eat in their restaurants comfortably because the food is quality and it's not too cheap either.
Now, back to where we were. Can you share a surprising discovery you've made in your research so far?
So far, I learned that the data protection laws are not known by local community.
Yeah.
The policy was passed in 2019.
Yes.
And they put some of those into law, but a lot of people don't know about it. Probably right now that the young people are using the social media more,
Yes.
people might want to just find out, but it's not a common thing. The second thing is that the training may not be quite appropriate in the formal learning institutions.
Yeah.
That after some students finish here, they have to go for additional training to be able to advertise on social media and even manage the social media platforms for businesses. So this study is actually, I'm hoping the outcome of this study will assist in improving our curriculum.
Having mentioned data protection, I think most Kenyans barely read terms and conditions that come with these things, whether it's mobile phones, social media when logging in or signing up. I think that people actually overlook the terms and conditions. And there was this show on Netflix that talked about data protection and how social media is actually harvesting data from you. You find yourself, right now we are talking about, let's say, a podcast, and in your For You page, you'll have them bringing things and topics that touch on podcast recording and also social media itself. So it's like right now, if my phone is connected to the internet, yours is connected, his is connected, they are still harvesting data. And yet you approved that they could take the data, but you don't know that you approved them because you skipped the terms and conditions. And so I think that was a big discovery that you made in your research.
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
In terms of surprising discoveries, so you've been doing interviews with users and with creators of the...
Yeah.
Can you think of one of those interviews which really surprised you, when someone said something completely unexpected?
Actually, the research has not yet been done. Yeah, so I've just sampled a few. I've talked to my former students, and I just realized that there is a lot they can teach us or they can guide us on how to train the current students, especially in communication design. There is the AI that is coming up that I learned from you that you're already using it.
Yes.
That it's auto-generating advertisements, tailor-making them to suit the consumer from their personal data.
Yeah.
Actually, the advertisements become so irritating that they track whatever the journey you'll be making online. They keep tracking you if you Google something related.
Yeah.
Sometimes even conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah, because we were seated in one forum and conversing, and we mentioned a name, and then somebody saw a friendly invite, and we are like, wow. So these things track us. So it can be very irritating.
Yeah.
So one of the things that my study is meant to do is how do we mitigate that? And that doesn't mean shoving trash into people's throats, no.
Yeah.
But how do we present it in such a way that it will not irritate, but communicate? How do you frame that message so that it adds value to the consumer?
Yeah.
So that is one of the questions I hope to answer in the study.
So, you are a mother, a lecturer, and you're also basically a student because you're always learning. How do you balance your research and other professional responsibilities as well as home responsibilities?
Let me just think through. One is that I've learned, having taught for many years, I've learned to prepare very fast.
Yeah.
I don't need to do so much reading.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what I'm studying also applies to what I teach.
Yeah.
So I take a very short time to prepare, but thoroughly.
Yes.
At least I want to show value, give value to my learners. I also have the responsibilities of taking care of the family. I don't really, I'm with my son alone, so he helps where he can.
Yes.
But I love cooking, so that is one way of unwinding.
Yes.
Yeah, so because I realized when I just sit and write, lose focus.
Yes.
I mean, I get so tired, and if I force it, I'll develop headaches. So
Yes.
I go and cook, I wash a little, I go shopping a little, then come back, and I find that I can critique what I've been doing as opposed to just bury myself in the study, which I find not helpful. So I do what I enjoy doing. I haven't quite locked myself up because I realized that will not bring out quality out of me.
This is brilliant because personally cooking is therapy for me too. So I think it's a perfect way to escape from all the thoughts in your head and everything else that's bothering you in terms of professionally and casually. And what are your biggest challenges as you're doing this research, and how have you overcome them?
There are certain studies that we cannot access.
Yeah.
Even though the institution has subscribed, they need to be bought, and I could not keep up with that. So I have to get alternative studies that may not be as of high quality as the previous one. In fact, the day before, I went to 2 libraries trying to get one document, but failed completely.
Yeah.
So it delays working. It also blocks it slows down the thought process.
Yes.
But we've learned that we cannot always have it the way we want, so I go for an alternative.
True.
Yeah, I really try to see who else has talked about this idea.
Yeah.
So it may not be that quality, but
Yes.
it really just has to fill the gap. Another challenge is now socially is keeping friends.
Yeah.
You have to lose friends. Family members don't understand you. Extended family members don't understand you.
Yeah.
Me, they think wrong with you.
Yeah.
Don't talk to us. People keep
They
blaming,
yeah.
and I don't want to tell them that at my age I am a student.
Yeah. And the fact that you're not available all the time for
And
the
I'm not
functions.
available. People, where I come from,
Yeah.
funerals, a distant cousin
Yeah.
who comes from that area
Yeah.
are so important.
Yeah.
Actually, I've been misunderstood so much,
Yeah.
but I've had to bear with that. And then the last challenge is raising fees,
Yes.
meeting family needs,
Yeah.
the fees is not cheap, but I have decided, I have studied before, and I'm a believer in God.
Yes.
And
And you can
since
do it
I
again.
went through undergrad, I didn't have any.
Yeah.
The government grant, well, we paid. It was a loan to some level. We paid. I did pay. Masters, I didn't even have anything when I went. I was free from money, and I finished debt free.
Yeah.
So I'm believing God to help me finish this debt free.
Definitely. If you can
Yes.
do it, you did it before, you can do it again. So I think your positivity to life is just awesome. And are there any specific tools or platforms that you find particularly effective in your research?
Wouldn't say I have got into that so much,
Yeah.
but I was looking at Instagram, and I was not used to video.
Yes.
Our design studies
Yeah.
is 2D,
Yes.
but video now is it has movement.
Yeah.
Although in my master's I did media,
Yeah.
so it's easy to analyze. We studied how to analyze videos, film, all that, even create them. So I found that part of the media studies will come into play.
Yeah.
Because I had was banner advertising.
Yes.
But that will be the core, but I cannot ignore the video. So that is something that has to come on board.
Yeah.
And I'm also trying to reflect on how we're going to teach this. To me, it's not a challenge,
Yeah.
but are we equipped? And I think we will have to be equipped to teach all this. And also other forms of promotion, like copywriting, just writing articles.
Yeah.
Like if I want to go and teach, I find those market articles that related to different subjects by marketers are very informative, because whoever is writing is hands-on. For me, it's better than books. So we need to train those students to do copywriting.
Yeah.
Actually, in days now, I teach part-time. I teach copywriting,
Yes.
but not because it's not in the curriculum. So we'll need to learn how to teach how to write.
Yes.
Because a lot of times students write and I'm like, oh goodness. Yeah, so advertising, copywriting is not an area that we have given a lot of concentration.
Yes.
So I think we will have to cover that in future if it would be agreeable with the institution.
I've actually heard that from you. I didn't know it was actually a thing. So I guess we are learning this all the time.
There are 2 tools. I just sent you links.
All right.
We'll have to cut this bit out of the interview. It operates in a grey legal zone. There's a website called Sci-Hub where you can access journal articles
Okay.
for free.
Okay.
I sent it to you.
Okay.
And then there's another website called LibGen.
Yes.
Do you guys know LibGen?
Not really.
LibGen is for finding free books.
Okay.
So both of them are kind of, they operate in a legal grey zone, but researchers use them because if you don't have access to the journal article, you need to read it. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
So I've sent you the links. I would really, for me that was a kind of a complete game changer,
Yeah.
because suddenly I could access any.
I used to use PDF drive, but they have too many adverts. So my computer rejected it.
Yeah.
It can't.
Sci-Hub is really good,
All
but I
right.
think that the articles need to be before 2022.
All right.
Just quickly, I wanted to let you know because it's a really good resource.
All
Yeah.
right.
Anyway.
As we've mentioned about tools, I think also the people that you have around you and the people that have been through the same experience as you are very, very big tools, as we've heard from Mr. Sam Hopkins. And what advice would you give to students who are undertaking PhD or who are thinking of, and those who wouldn't even have it in their idea to partake PhD?
First of all, each level of studying adds some value to somebody's life or
Yeah.
knowledge. It's an experience, and it brings, it challenges what you already know. From undergrad, I thought I had really studied a lot.
Yeah.
So when I went to do my master's, it was not in design, but
Yeah.
more, I learned a lot that I didn't know that is in media that applies in design.
Your master's was in communication and
Communication, media option.
media. Okay.
So there is so much I've borrowed from there.
Yeah.
Actually, when I sat with Professor Doch,
Yeah.
he was pushing me to combine design and media.
Of which-
And what brought that together is advertising.
Yes.
So that is why we're talking about media literacy. That's not in advertising that we teach to designers, yes. But when it comes to media, it's very important. Another thing that is don't teach in advertising is media planning.
Yes.
Very, very important, and it's now a must. If you are advertising on social media platform, it's a must plan. And I've looked at some of them and the platforms, and I've found they're actually well planned.
Yeah.
You can get a pattern, you can get a strategy out of that.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is another area. And then the legal part, designers didn't have that. I didn't even study that under design.
Yeah.
I studied it under media, but it applies to design.
Yes.
Copywriting, all that rules. Yeah. So there is a lot that will come on board that I didn't get from the design discipline initially. But currently, I think some of that is being taught.
Yeah.
Yeah, ethics, law and ethics of design.
Would you convince someone who's like thinks that education is not the only way? How would you convince them to partake PhD?
Yeah, I know that a lot of people have done better without even PhDs.
Yes.
They've been born with talents or through exposure.
Yeah.
But if you are so inclined to academics like I am, you just find PhD more interesting because it gives you more different perspectives to the usual things like the philosophy of doing things. I've learned about that. Previously, I just used to look at advertising as just communicating to the audience.
Yeah.
But I've learned from other countries, the Western countries, Russia, that there is a philosophy that you can follow.
Yeah.
And that is also found in communication. You know, a lot of people just think some broadcaster wakes up and starts talking on me on radio, TV. There are certain inclinations they have.
Yeah. And is there anything that you'd like to share with someone out there, or our listeners today? Anything random, freely, that you'd share?
I would say that, I'm just saying that it's always important to take up new challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not just stick to what you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So studying PhD would make you read so much and be very curious to read about everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember one time we had an exhibition at the Railway Museum and I stood next to Professor Suki and she alerted me on certain things. She probably doesn't even know what she did to me that day.
Yeah.
You know, people would come closer to her and keep quiet. And then she made fun and said, yeah, people come near me and wait for me to profess. So people imagine if you have a doctorate in one field, they even don't know it's one field. They imagine you know everything. That's not true. But at least it gives you the curiosity and the framing of things, general framing of life as a whole, even regardless of the field that you enter into. So people expect you to be more knowledgeable. So you have to fit in. It's called alter casting theory in communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, alter casting theory claims that whatever role you find yourself in, ensure you fit in. That is something I've learned, that I really have to be broad. Although I'm narrowing down to advertising, but current affairs, politics, and all those culture. Even having sat with Professor Dodge, because he was my first supervisor.
Yeah.
I'll just sit with him and he talks about so much. So I'm hoping to be as knowledgeable and add value to society, not to show off that I really know more than everyone else, but where there is an issue to be tackled that can add value, if my contribution can add value, I'll do that.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes.
I wanted to ask from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes.
It struck me that you used the word empathy,
Yes.
and also when you talk about how your pedagogical approach, I also feel that listening to students is a strong part of what you do. Sometimes, and so trying to think about, so my question is long. One is like, how do you understand empathy in general as a tool or as something which is practiced in the field of research? And secondly, specifically, you talked about advertising and empathy, and sometimes I think advertisers are actually sociopathic, meaning, and one of the characteristics of being a sociopath is that you can't feel empathy.
Yes.
You lack that ability and that emotion. So maybe like the general question of how you approach, if you're conscious of empathy in your research practice, and then the second question is like to talk a little bit more about empathy in the field of advertising.
Okay, first of all, empathy is found under design thinking. It's a design approach that considers how the person, the consumer of whatever you want to work on, be it the product, be it information, feels in that, like stepping into their shoes. I'll use an example of Airbnb. They realized that a lot of people are not consuming that particular service. They're not subscribing to Airbnb. They prefer hotels. And so the designer wanted to visit the people, the consumers, went to the Airbnbs, went back to the website to find out what exactly is that the customers don't see, or how do they feel. Then the designer realized that the photographs that were put on the website were very poor quality. So they had to change, and the sales increased. So empathy is about stepping into the customer's shoes. It's not very easy. Like we're talking about niche marketing as opposed to mass marketing.
Yes.
Niche in terms of narrowcasting.
Yes.
Broadcasting is the old media, the radio, TV, television.
Yes.
Much as you want to empathize, you really need to create personas.
Yeah.
The ones that represent whatever the qualities of that ideal customer would be. And then use that, because I may have to interview a few consumers of indigenous food.
Yeah.
Like not just students, but also beyond the students, or students who consume indigenous food, to see how do they choose that. I've done a little bit of pre-testing, and I've realized they actually move in communities.
Yeah.
So once I get to those communities, I would want to know what prompts the communities to consume indigenous food, and how do they get it? Is it just going to the restaurant? Is it ordering the food? Do they even order indigenous food?
Mentioning on the same on niche advertising, you have, let's say, companies that will give an example of fold phones, right? And in an attempt to have both the tablet users and mobile phone users, they lose both, because basically, I just want a tablet. Why are you giving me a tablet that turns into a phone? Or the other one is like, I just want a phone. Why do you want me to buy a phone that turns into a tablet? It's not what I want. So in that attempt of creating a new niche, they lose their old niche customers, or rather consumers. So I think that was a really good point that you touched on. And also, how can audiences, or rather our listeners, stay connected with you or learn more about your research, outside this platform?
Currently, it's a bit risky trying to broadcast it.
Yes.
Because it will look like it's plagiarism when I present that idea.
Yeah.
So I may not divulge into so much of that information at the moment, but basically I would give a summary to whoever is willing to listen.
Yes.
Yeah, but going public at this particular time may not be very, very safe, because even the idea can be stolen and plagiarized, and somebody uses ChatGPT to produce that this is before me.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's been done on books.
Yes.
Someone is introducing a book, another one picks the idea and reproduces it and sells it faster than themselves. So there are certain things I may need to guard until the study is done and presented to the respective examiner.
Thank you so much for being here with us on this podcast, for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. So thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do subscribe, and also leave comments and things that you might want to hear more and people you'd want us to interview. Thank you so much for being here. Good day.